First story. The saga of evil narcissistic parents who kidnapped their own daughter after having a car accident and forged her finances to go bankrupt. So she had to depend on them financially, kicked her boyfriend and his kids out of her apartment, and falsely got him arrested. So, this is my first post ever on Reddit. This might be a little long, but there's a lot of backstory, so sorry. I got divorced mid-last year in 2020. I started dating my current boyfriend, who is an absolute sweetheart. We both have a medical background and work as paramedics. When we first started talking, he exaggerated when he had been working at the ambulance company. Yes, it was kind of a lie. But what he said was that he was still working there as a full-timer when he was really on volunteer status for some time. Kind of stupid, but not the end of the world. At least I don't think so. In January, my boyfriend had to go to the ER for some pretty nasty bleeding ulcers and was subsequently admitted. On my way home early that morning, I crashed my car, resulting in a crushed left foot, torn ligaments in the right knee, a nasty concussion and bruised lungs. Somehow, my parents found out that he had exaggerated his employment with the ambulance company, and I think they may have blamed him for my car accident. I ended up being in the hospital for about a week, undergoing 2 surgeries for my foot, and finally being able to get discharged home. A lot of this time frame I don't remember because of my concussion, but I do remember some snippets. I remember my boyfriend coming and visiting me, helping me bathe, get up to use the restroom, which is incredibly hard with both legs not working, and so on, making sure I was comfortable and everything. My mom would come and visit me a couple of days during this time period and start telling me that my boyfriend was lying to me. There is a lot of stupid stuff. And she started planting these lies in my head when she knew I was mentally compromised. My boyfriend and his 2 kids had been living with me and my daughter up until this point. I initially wanted to come home to all of them for my healing process, which is still ongoing almost 5 months later. My parents barged into my apartment and kicked him and his 2 daughters out, telling my complex that I wanted them out, and that I had specifically asked them to take care of it. I did no such thing. Since we were in the process of adding my boyfriend and the girls to my lease, this ended up in a near eviction for me, and I had to go to my parents to rehab, a whole other story. But it was hell. My parents had me block my boyfriend, and I didn't get the chance to see him again until nearly 3 weeks after I was released from the hospital. At which point I was able to talk to him and clear up all the lies my parents told me he had fed me. I realized that they had been the ones telling me lies. Now my parents have been assisting my boyfriend's soon-to-be ex-wife. They have been in the process of divorce for over a year, getting false protection orders against him, and trying to get his kids taken away from him. At first, I was wavering on who I stood behind, but my parents had started coming to my apartment, stalking me and my boyfriend, making threats against his life, and overall making it to the point where I don't feel safe in my own home because I just don't know when they are going to show up and demand me to hand over my daughter, threatening to go to my ex-husband to try and get my custody taken away, and so much more. I have since cut them out of my life, blocked their numbers from my phone, and made sure they have no contact with my daughter. But I still feel terrible about completely cutting them out. Am I doing the right thing? Someone please tell me this is the right thing, or I'm being a total arsehole either way. Sorry for the long threat. I tried to put it in as much context as possible, but I've never done this before. My parents are totally bonkers, and I've cut them out of my life. Am I doing the right thing? Update. My 32F was in a major car accident in January 2021. Ironically, I had been taking my boyfriend 36M to the ER because he had bleeding ulcers and ended up getting admitted to the hospital that night. This was still when they were enforcing COVID rules, so I was booted out of the hospital at about 3 in the morning. When I left, it was snowing, and not thinking, I hopped on the freeway, which wasn't a good idea. I had been driving a lifted Jeep Cherokee with mud terrain tires, not the best ever for snowstorm driving. Getting off the freeway to go home, my brakes locked up, and I went into a light pole head first at about 60 mph. My Jeep did not have airbags, that was dumb. Needless to say, my car was totaled, and I had to be extracted from the car by the fire department. This whole time, I had been blacking out and losing consciousness, and I still get random flashes that I don't have all my memories from that night or several months after the accident. I got sent to the nearest trauma center, which was the same hospital I had just left. The nurses felt pretty bad about kicking me out. I ended up with a moderate to severe TBI, broken under my left eye, hairline fractures on my skull on the left side, bruising behind my ears, and black eyes. I had also cut open the inside of my mouth, had multiple lacerations all over my face. I broke my driver's side window with my face, broke and bruised some ribs, had hairline fractures in my spine, broke my right wrist, my right knee, and my left foot, which required 2 surgeries, and I still need approximately 3 more. Needless to say, I was not doing great. I had recently gotten divorced the previous year, and I think that my entitled parents decided that my accident was my boyfriend's fault. I had to stay in the hospital for a total of 12 days, in which case the mild family drama exploded into a severe family inferno. As I got closer to being released, all I wanted to do was go home to my boyfriend and our kids. He had 2 previously, and I had 1. My entitled mother decided that wasn't what she wanted. On the phone, we sound almost identical. The whole time that I was in the hospital, she had been getting on the phone and impersonating me to my apartment complex management, even going as far as calling the cops to get my boyfriend and his 2 kids removed from my apartment. They were not on my lease yet. My M also forged my signature on hospital paperwork, made up a story about how my boyfriend was abusive to me, and got him banned from seeing me at the hospital. Again forging my signature and writing a letter stating I didn't want to see him. This whole time, I was still suffering from the effects of my TBI and was delirious from the combination of pain medications and brain fog from my head injury. M even had the locks changed on my apartment without my consent. When I was finally released from the hospital, I was in a wheelchair because of my broken foot, which had just had 2 plates and 10 screws surgically put in to hold it together, and an ankle-to-hip brace on my other leg from my knee being broken. I requested to go home to my apartment, but again, M told me that I couldn't go home because I had a 2nd-story apartment and couldn't take care of myself. So I got sent to stay at my parents' house against my will, an hour away from home because M wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to let my boyfriend come back to my apartment. I spent almost a whole miserable month there. M refused to take me home even after I got crutches and was able to bear some weight. Initially, they refused to even go get my crutches from town because they didn't want me to have more mobility. Eventually, it got to the point where I had a friend come and pick me up from M's house, so I could go home because they kept refusing to let me go. As I gained clarity in my mind and was taken off the intense pain medication, I was able to start rectifying the situations that M made a huge mess of in my life. But I'm still trying to recover in some areas. I didn't find out until much later, when medical bills started coming in, that M had called my boyfriend's health insurance company, impersonating me, and had me removed from his insurance. It took months of calling, badgering, and footwork on my part to get the situation figured out and have the insurance pay for what they were supposed to pay for. It almost caused me to go bankrupt. At the same time, M signed me up for minimal health insurance coverage through the state that I had no idea I was enrolled in until I got a bill later stating that I owed fees. Needless to say, I eventually completely cut both M and my father out of life after finding out how much they tried to control and how much they messed up my life. I ended up getting protection orders after they tried to break into my house, stalked me, and sent family and friends over to harass me. This whole incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was quite a bit of retaliation on their side that threw my life into a total tailspin ever since. But I'm sticking to my guns and not backing down. Update. Wow. I'm a little overwhelmed with how fast this post exploded yesterday. I was definitely not expecting that. I tried to keep up with as many comments and replies as possible, but I figured this might be an easier way to answer the questions that have been thrown at me. But first off, I definitely understand those who are skeptical about my post. It's more than a little bizarre, and I'm probably not the best at describing some of the situations, but I seriously appreciate all the great advice that has been given. And I'm looking at some of the other options listed in the comments, as well as what I am already doing. I think the easiest part for me to clear up is the questions about the insurance, and my M getting me off of the insurance I had with my boyfriend, and putting me on state insurance without my or my boyfriend's consent. As an adult, I can call in and cancel my coverage at any time, with or without the policyholder's knowledge. There doesn't need to be a major life change in order to be taken off of a policy, usually just to get new insurance coverage or add someone to insurance. All my M needed was the insurance information and access to my information as well as his, which she did. She already had all of my personal information, including my SS number and my insurance information. This is how she signed me up for insurance coverage through the state as well. As some of you speculated, I'm sure it had something to do with the financial control she could exert over me as well as trying to totally get my boyfriend out of my life. But honestly, I will probably never get the real answers to that. The reason I didn't get the hospital bills immediately is a pretty easy explanation. First off, my car insurance coverage included medical bill payments as well, up to a certain amount of money. At first, going through the billing process, the hospital, orthopedics, anesthesiologists, etc. had to send their bills through my car insurance first, and then through my health insurance. I'm not 100% sure how that all works exactly, But I do know it was a mess, and it took multiple tries to explain to all the doctors what was already paid out, who got what money, and the next insurance on the bill. As well, it took weeks for them and myself to realize that while I was in the hospital, the insurance I went in with got cancelled mid-hospital stay. So bills got sent out to the insurance I had for my boyfriend, which was followed by confusion from the hospital, insurance companies, and myself trying to figure out when it got cut off, what was covered, and what exactly happened. This takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. My M did tell me eventually what she had done with my insurance and how she changed it. But by that point, it was too late, and I was scrambling to try and rectify the situation and get as much coverage from my hospital stay as possible. Even doing that, I still owe nearly $50,000 in medical bills. For those who had questions about how I had gotten on his insurance in the first place when he started the job, he had the insurance from which we had qualified as domestic partners because of how long we had been living together and how long the relationship had lasted. For everyone wondering if we went to the cops or are filing charges or anything along those lines, it's a very long story, but yes, we are. I have a very good lawyer who actually represents myself and my boyfriend. It took me a while after I got home to my apartment to get to the point where I cut contact with him. When I finally got home, I tried to start seeing my boyfriend again, and we started the long process of trying to heal from what happened since M had essentially kicked him and his 2 kids out of my apartment in the middle of winter. They really had nowhere else to go. The kids ended up staying with friends for a while, and he stayed in his car and rented a hotel room when possible. I wasn't fully aware of what exactly was going on at the time, as M had my cell phone and access to my phone, and while I was at her home, she watched like a hawk to make sure that I wasn't contacting him. If I did, I got berated, screamed at, and at one point did not have access to my phone, which was all very confusing because I was on very heavy-duty pain medication, as well as having the confusion from the TBI. After I had made it back to my apartment and started to have more contact with my boyfriend, my M escalated. I stayed at my apartment even though I told her I was fine, showing up randomly and eventually getting so angry that I refused to cut contact with my boyfriend that she threatened to kill him. That was when I grew a slight backbone and decided that it just wasn't going to get better. At that point, I filed for protection, as did my boyfriend, who copied my paperwork. When the first protection orders got dropped because we didn't have enough evidence, she had gotten a lawyer at this point, but we did not because we couldn't pay for a retainer. And this was before I had gotten smart enough to install cameras and a call recorder on my phone. My M went to the city's prosecutor's office and told them that she wanted to press charges of perjury against my boyfriend. This is where the friendship with the prosecutor started, and it was very hard for us to get anything to stick, because M was getting in with our local PD and the prosecutor. Yes, they ended up going after my boyfriend and not me. Yes, that is selective prosecution. Yes, it is very illegal. At this same time, my mother and father are retired and apparently have nothing better to do with themselves. They had been in contact with my boyfriend's ex-wife, and at the same time we were getting beaten down with a perjury case. They also helped my boyfriend's ex-wife start a custody battle for his children. They had been separated for some time, but the divorce had been stalled in court for several years at this point. They also filed in small claims court for lawyer and court fees after our first protection order was removed. My ex-husband had been allowing my daughter to see both of my parents still, which I did fight about, and which probably spurred the grandparents' rights visitation case that they filed during this same time. So we have been fighting one thing at a time and collecting all of the evidence that we can. All of the hospital paperwork, especially those that were forged, had to be requested from the hospital. The phone calls to the insurance company needed to be requested, and we needed our lawyer to get those. It wasn't something they were just going to give us, unfortunately. At this point, we have waded through almost all of the court filings my M has thrown at us, and we are finishing gathering evidence so we can counterattack at this point. At the time, our lawyer was telling us to be patient and gather as much as we could, as when we get through the thick of it, we can throw what we have into the system. But we needed and wanted to have enough to nail them to the wall. From here, there will be countersuits both jointly between myself and my boyfriend in separate lawsuits, as well as submitting what we have for the identity theft. It's a very long process, and it takes a lot of time, effort, and money to get things moving. For those of you wondering if me and my boyfriend got back together, and how that is going, yes, we did get back together. It didn't take long for me to start realizing what was happening when I wasn't being given the heavy narcotics, and my brain started the healing process from the TBI. It did take time for me to wade through everything that happened and try to recall memories. We did get back together, find a new place, and move back in together with his 2 kids and my daughter. We have had some hard times, and of course, we are both a little damaged from the whole process. but we both have counseling and are doing well. I hope this helps explain and expand on the questions everyone has been asking in the comments. Update. It's been about 6 months since I posted the original here and posted a clarifying update after getting slammed with a ton of comments from everyone. It's still getting new comments every day, which just blows my mind. I kind of laughed at a lot of the comments that were doubting that it was a true story, because honestly, I wish it had been. I really appreciate the supportive comments from everyone who sent them too. It helped me feel a lot more validated in making sure that I stayed far away from my parents and smashed down those feelings of regret and guilt. Not much headway has happened in the legal department. It has been taking much longer than we had hoped. A lot of our lawsuits are dependent on when my boyfriend's probation ends. Just to remind whoever reads this, he was arrested for perjury on a protection order that we both filed against my parents because we messed up on a date. Even though our paperwork was exactly the same, he was arrested for perjury, and I wasn't because my mother is friends with some of the people in the prosecutor's office. He ended up taking a plea deal and having to do some community service. We are waiting for his probation to end, so we can launch our countersuits. His divorce was finalized in March, which was a total circus. My mother left his ex-wife to sink or swim, and she even refused to show up for her to be a witness during their divorce trial. We got full custody of his children, and we have been focusing on healing our family. We had our baby in February, a week earlier than planned, with an emergency C-section due to a partial placental abruption. We've been very busy focusing on our kids and learning how to take steps to heal ourselves and help our kids heal from everything they have gone through. We've been getting our finances in order and are looking at buying a home with room enough for all of us. And looking at both of us finishing school, which is easier said than done. I have to come up with $10,000 to go back and finish. The medical debt has been slowly getting removed from my credit as I've been disputing it, and we are finally stabilizing. We also finally got married, which is helping the kids feel more stable. Everything has been going really well. Thanks for all the well wishes. Sorry, the update isn't as exciting as I wish it would have been. It would have been really satisfying to completely bury my parents in litigation and such, and we are planning to do some damage once his probation is done. But we are learning that some of the healing process is moving on and succeeding. Second story. OP's husband sawed her 3-year-old daughter. I just need somewhere to talk into the void. This is a throwaway for obvious reasons. Last week, I found out that my 6-year-old husband has been sawed our 3-year-old daughter. He has been arrested and is waiting to be sentenced. I just can't believe that this is all really happening. There were no signs. He was never abusive to me, and he always seemed like a happy and involved dad. Now we're facing homelessness and a lifetime of sorrow over what has happened. I'm a disabled mother with 2 young children, my youngest born less than 2 months ago. We were financially dependent on him, and he acted as my caregiver when I needed one. I don't know what to do or who to talk to, so I'm posting here. I've accessed all of the local help I can, but we're still going to lose our home. I just feel broken. It's like I died that day, but I'm still being made to keep waking up. If I didn't have my children, I would just end things, but they deserve better than that. I need help, but I don't know where to turn. My life is over, but I'll keep living it to keep my daughters safe. Thank you if you read this. Comments. Dude, commune what? Thank you. I know it probably won't help you feel better, but I am genuinely grateful that you exist. Thank you for protecting your children. Because I know what happens when a mother doesn't make the right choices, and I'm relieved that at least your children are safe. Green ad 221. I'm confused. He got arrested last week and is now awaiting sentencing. Did he plead guilty? Are you sure he isn't awaiting a bond hearing? That would change the situation immensely. OP, honestly, I have no idea how it all works. He's been remanded, and I've been told he's pleading guilty. I thought the next thing was sentencing, but I could easily have gotten that wrong. Green ad 221. And if you've heard him plead guilty, that makes sense. A week from arrest to sentencing is really fast and implies no trial. If he hasn't pleaded guilty, I wouldn't let your kid around him, but pay attention to the trial. If he is found not guilty, this doesn't mean innocent though. He would be free to go, and you have to decide if you think he did it or not. This is all based on the US experience though. A quick Google search showed that a felony can take 180 days, so there's definitely something else going on here. OP. I'm in the UK, so I don't know how it works, but it's definitely different from the US. Without too much detail, there's evidence on at least one device of what he's done. So even if he somehow escapes prison time, he definitely did it. Update. 3 months later. I don't know if this is the right way to post an update, but for anyone interested, my soon-to-be ex-husband has been remanded in custody since his arrest. His plea hearing has been pushed back twice, as there was so much data to look through before it could go ahead. It's now due to happen in a week and a half, and he has advised that he will plead guilty to all charges. He is facing up to 15 years in prison for what he has done, and he should be sentenced about a month after his plea hearing. We have been able to stay in our home for now, but I am desperately trying to move to somewhere new for us and closer to our support network. Because of my finances, it's very hard to find somewhere to live. Lots of landlords aren't keen on renting to people on benefits, and I can't afford many of the places available. I haven't started the divorce process yet, as I'm trying to organize getting free legal help, and that's taking time. Once I've got that in place, I'm going to get divorced and then change our names to protect us in the future. Thank you to everyone who posted kind comments on my original post. Reading those helped keep me going through the last couple months. Comments. Anonymous 1704. As someone who was abused by my sperm donor, and then by my stepdad, please really support and love your daughter. Therapy is a must. I'm 33 and still need therapy because my birth giver didn't keep me in therapy for more than a year. I was 15 when most of the abuse stopped and the state took over. When and if she is ever ready, get her into girl-only clubs and groups she has an interest in. This will help her find support for herself and teach her to trust people again. Her trust in adult safety is shattered if she hasn't realized just how bad what that monster did to her was. Love her and shower her with as much attention as you can handle. But respect her boundaries and also give her space when she needs it, even if you have family or guests over. Encourage journaling, art, music, and hobbies about expressing yourself. You two are just starting a journey to healing and maturing. I feel for you and your daughter, and hope you both have as few bumps as possible on the path to healing. Update. 1 month later. I posted before about finding out that my husband had been abusing our young daughter. This will be my last update on the situation. Last week, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which doesn't feel long enough, but nothing ever would. I have found a safe place to live for myself and my children, and we are slowly managing to get ourselves a new, happier life. I'm going to be filing for divorce and attempting to remove his parental rights as soon as I get the legal aid sorted out. My little girl is doing as well as she can, and I'm trying to get her some play therapy organized to help. Thank you to everyone who sent kind messages and encouragement. They really meant a lot. Edit to add. In my original post, I said that there were no warning signs and that my husband had never been abusive to me. I now know and accept that this is not true. I won't go into much detail, but after talking things through with my therapist, I can now see that I have been emotionally abused by him for years. I was isolated from my friends and family and afraid of angering him. He was selfish, and I always had to ask him to be a parent to our children, even in the simplest things, but by the time I was living it, I thought that was normal. He would play with them on occasion, but nothing more than that. I'm adding this for anyone reading this who is now worried about their own situation or paranoid about what could happen in their life. There were signs, and there was other abuse, but I couldn't see it while I was living it. If you are scared of your partner in any way, that's not normal, and you need to try and seek help. Comments. Background War 9535. 10 years doesn't seem enough, but it's going to be a long 10 years for that pause. Prisoners don't take kindly to people who hurt kids. Swordfish Trombone 13. If it's any consolation, it's going to be 10 hard years. And even after he gets out, he will never be able to have any kind of decent life. It's not enough, but it will have to do. Professional Joke 887. I'm still quite a young man, 28, with a young 2-year-old daughter. I just look at her and observe how she behaves, and I wonder how anyone can hurt or abuse their own beautiful child. So sorry you had to go through this. You seem like a great mother and are very concerned and focused on repairing the damage that monster has done. I wish all your family happiness, and I hope that man rots not only in jail, but in whatever is in his next life. Keep her in therapy as long as you can. It'll save her mental state for later in life. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.